We're
here
here
with
to
my clients
chat about ways to boost intrinsic motivation. Motivation that comes from within, motivation that comes because we have a solid relationship, rather than things like incentives, bribes, consequences, and punishments alone. Now, those things can be useful, but we want to expand our toolbox so that as much as possible, we can just get those motors running, get that motivation, that listening, that cooperation without needing to resort to those other less desirable strategies. So if you want more kind, clever ways to connect and motivate your kids, you're in the right place. We've been giving a lot of tips this month and last month about intrinsic motivation, things like how to win your child's cooperation, how to connect before you correct to really get kids in that connected space with you so that your requests land better. And one thing I want to tell you today is that there is another way we can win cooperation that's very powerful, and it's by showing more than telling. And if you were drawn to this, maybe you thought, oh yeah, that's kind of intuitive, right? Because words are only go so far, but when you show and you even model how to do a thing, why it's exciting, why it matters, how it impacts others, you're really bringing in some a more like multi-sensory experience for your kids that generally they need in order to actually pay attention, learn, and be motivated. So you found yourself in the right place, right time. And I especially want you to know that if you want better listening, more cooperation, you're kind of tired of kids dragging their feet around when it's time to do chores or get started on their schoolwork, you found a good spot to be. I want to welcome in my clients, Chloe, Kathy, and Todd, who are all here listening on Zoom. Can't get enough. Building in your toolboxes, good reminders, right? Quick hot tips on Mondays. And next week, we'll be back together for an Ask Me Anything. We have dozens of new members. Folks have been invited to join our group, and we'll be answering some of those questions and topics that you let us know you need support with. So come back Monday at noon next week. So let's come into this topic. I challenge you to consider, are you actually showing your kids the behavior that you seek? Are you doing what you're asking them to do? Or are you mostly just telling them what behavior you want? Now, it's a neurological fact that we tend to mirror what we see in others, and that our visual sense can be up to 85% of our brain activity at any given time. We are highly visual creatures, akin to how, for example, for dogs, it's mostly smell and sound. That's 85% or more of their brain activity. For us, it's visual. So the showing versus telling is a really key thing, especially for children. And here's why. They have a limited life experience, which means they have a limited vocabulary, or if they even know the words, they don't have it attached to a concrete experience of what it's like to actually execute that action or behavior. And they may not actually know how to get from A to C. They need that point B in between. And by showing them, we can help them connect those dots. So how we calmly and proactively handle a situation instead of telling kids to calm down, how we model using coping tools and strategies and talk ourselves through our tough emotions versus telling a kid to calm down. By getting into the moment and seeing, oh my gosh, they actually need me to teach them something, rather than asking them, why aren't you doing that yet? Or how come it's taking you so long? Really does flip the script. So today's number one reminder, number one key idea that I want you to have is just to go ahead and think of things that you tell, that you had to repeat yourself over and over again. I want you to go back and revisit it either later today or tomorrow, and just take some time to show them instead. Have them come along with you while you do the thing you want them to do, or actually sit them down for more of a little lesson. In Montessori land, we would do this all the time, especially around expectations that weren't being followed by the group. I'll give you an example. One time there were kids who were, all over the slide and using it unsafely. And I found myself telling, go down, make sure you go down feet first. Oh, right, we go down the slide, not up the slide. Yep, we hold onto the bars when we go up the ladder. And there's these three things that I needed them to do to use the slide safely. And they weren't many of them were not doing it. And I would tell them, maybe they would do it, but maybe they wouldn't. And they would just sort of keep going, or they would willfully do the opposite or something. And it just wasn't working. And I was exhausted. And I was reminded about why I wasn't teaching young children anymore. I was like, this is a lot of work, this is really hard, right? So, but what I did is I pulled out of my toolbox a smart tool, which is I need to give them a little lesson, a little representation of how this slide thing works. So instead of me reminding, getting exhausted, getting stressed, and then dropping a consequence, like, okay, slide is closed, right? Which happened multiple days in a row. I remembered my smart strategy and I said, oh my gosh, sit them down. So I had them go in circle first, and I role played through what is it like when you go up to the slide, and we acted out using our hands like this, right? And I said, okay, we're gonna have somebody show that when we go outside. What else do we need to do? It's like, oh yeah, we got to go down feet first. Why do we go down feet first? Because that way, if you land funny, you don't hit your head, right? Notice I'm using my body. I'm using visuals, right? And then the last thing I said was, well, how come we don't go up the slide? And I said, well, because if someone's going down the slide, what happens? Crash, right? Someone gets a foot in the face. Someone gets kicked and knocked over. Oh no, right? By the way, the age of the kids were 3 to 6. So then I went outside and said, let's make a circle around the slide, everybody. And who could show us how to go up the ladder safely with using your hands? And sure enough, a kid was like me, one of the older kids, and they did. And I just pointed out what this child was showing, right? I could have also done it if one of the kids weren't ready to do it. And then you go, okay, hand on the bars, right, got it. Okay, who could show us how to go down the slide safely? Me, and we had all watch as the child went down. I said, are they going to go head first or feet first? Head first. Oh no, not head first, feet first, right, feet first. And then, okay, could you show us? And they showed, right? And that, see, this seems like so much work, but trust me, it saved me so much time and work, and it will for you too. And then I said, who could help me show what happens if someone comes up the slide while someone goes down the slide? And they said, okay, can you put this teddy bear at the bottom of the slide, facing up the slide? Yes. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go up, and I'm going to pretend that this other teddy bear is going down the slide, and let's see what happens. Went down, and sure enough, crash at the bottom. Oh no, no one wants to be that teddy bear that got kicked off the slide. Right. So do we go up the slide? No, we go down the slide. And I said, who could show us the whole thing? And had someone go and do the whole thing. Now, why take the time for training? Why show them? Why have them even demonstrate that they understand? Well, I'll tell you, for the next 2 weeks, while I was still on this assignment at the school, I was doing a research study and helping out. I only had to close the slide one more time, and only for 3 kids. So the power of showing versus just telling, especially taking time out to make some special training, made such an impact. So that's something that you can do too. You can present it to your kids like a little lesson, the behavior you expect. You can catch yourself in the moment doing the opposite than what you're asking your child to do. The classic is you're really worked up, they're really worked up, and you say with a really strong voice, stop yelling. But your body is saying, and your voice is saying, yell when you're mad and you want someone else to stop yelling, get louder than them. So they're seeing that as the message versus the real message, which is we all need to calm down. Let's see if we can put our lids back on. In this family, we speak to each other respectfully, right? These other things, let's practice that. What could we say? What could we do instead of yell, right? These are all things, let's practice that. Or you can catch yourself being like, I feel like yelling, but instead I'm going to walk away and take 5. I'll be back. And you walk off. That is going to leave the biggest impression compared to saying, you can't yell at your sister. Don't yell in a stern voice, right? See the difference. Yes. Okay. So one thing you always want to do when is catch yourself if you find yourself giving a big lecture, and make sure that you're showing them with your own behavior, modeling, and then also walking through any kind of steps and checking for understanding along the way. My model, how many times I ask a question? Almost every other sentence was a question. I wanted to make sure they got it. And then I wanted to make sure they could show me the right way to do it or the way to behave, right? And know that it's going to take practice and some time and continuing modeling at times, right? Before they get it. They need refreshers too. I'm sure those kids within that school year needed a couple of refreshers about how to use a slide safely. And it's just part of learning. So that's a big piece that we can embrace. Now I want to give you a couple more tips, but before I do, those of you who are here, either watching the replay on YouTube or in the Facebook group, drop the word replay And those of you who are here live, drop the word replay if you're watching the replay. If you're here live, what's one thing that stands out to you right now? Something you don't want to forget that you could carry forward in your own parenting. And then if you have a specific scenario where you want better listening, put that in the chat too. And we have a couple minutes for some feedback. And I could use your scenario as an example. Okay. All right. So I'm going to keep going with tips, but I'll be watching the chats. And then if you put replay in the comments, you're watching a replay, I will see it and I will be able to coach you or give your feedback right in the comments, and it'll tag you and everything. Okay. All right. So a couple of pro tips. Say what you're thinking out loud. I call it think out loud. So kids, first of all, we as adults don't realize how much we talk to ourselves all the time with actually quite a high level of skill. We ask ourselves things like self-managing questions like, what do I want to start with today? What will it take to get myself out of bed this morning? What's on my to-do list? Who do I need to check on first? I wonder what time it is. These are all self-managing questions and kind of dialogue that we're having continuously within our own, kind of monologue within our own minds. Well, one of the things we can do is start to think out loud the questions or the thoughts that we hope our kids will start to use as well. Because guess what? We pick these things up somewhere. Sometimes it emerged because it made sense and we made it up ourselves. But oftentimes we're actually internalizing what we've seen some of the people we look up to do and say out loud. I love this one teacher who used to say, what's it going to take to blank? What's it going to take for you to read this, to finish your reading on time? What's it going to take for you to finish this essay without having so many run-on sentences? What's it going to take for you to show up to class on time? What's it going to take for you to remember not to eat food in the class, right? And I love that question. What's it going to take? And now I can ask myself that question. Yeah. So be thinking out loud. For an example, you could say, wow, Sammy looks really busy with his projects. I wonder if he can hear me because he's not looking at me yet. This shows them how to think things through, like, why isn't this person responding to me? Make astute observations and maybe even take on some responsibility for their part, rather than just telling others to do those things or telling your kids to do those things. Okay. So go ahead and put in the chat something that stood out to you so far. And if you have a scenario that you want better listening, please put it in there. It's been quiet so far, so I'm hoping that I get some comments that we can riff off of for this last minute or two. All right. Last pro tip, as we're hoping some comments roll in. When you want a child to take interest in something, conjure up and really pull out your stops around showing your own interests. And one of the ways you can show interest is be curious. I wonder what will happen if we add more salt this time. Let's go make some eggs and see. I wonder what will happen if we add more bubbles and whisk it a lot. I wonder if the pan is hot enough. Let's check with a little dot, right? A little splatter of egg batter. This is something I did this weekend with the 8-year-old. Boy, did she get into cooking this weekend. Pancakes, waffles, eggs. It was so much fun. And if I didn't show interest, I don't know that she would have stuck with it. It was a good 45 minutes of work we did together, making batter, measuring things, beating eggs, right? Cooking batches, all these things. But she stuck with it because I was also in it. I was interested. This is especially important if you're going to give your child some feedback about something they're not doing well or they're making mistakes. Get curious, show interest in understanding the situation, understanding the problem, understanding their perspective. Get on their level and join in with them. And even if it's something that's fun, right? Show interest in what they're interested in, and then they're likely to reciprocate. See how you're modeling for them what it looks like to show interest. Yeah. One of my favorite teachers, this is my last thought I'm going to give to you. She said, it's not our job to explain everything to kids. It's our job to use our undivided attention like a laser pointer, pointing at the thing that we would like them to pay attention to. Putting your attention on something, and especially the younger they are, appreciating the sensorial details of something like, wow, this is so smooth, or that's a little spicy. Bringing in the senses, moving our body towards something, getting down and looking under something. It's amazing how much that compels everyone around you to also get interested and check it out, right? use your interest, your attention like a laser pointer towards the things you want your kids to notice. It could be something even like building empathy for those of you who have older kids. I'm thinking of Todd and Kanti. What do you notice about this person's face, right? Oh, let's look at her face. She looks pretty. Her cheeks are red and she's frowning, but she's not crying. I think she's angry, right? Like putting attention on things that you want them to pay attention to, their impact on others. How is your sister's face look right now after you said that mean thing to her? Put your interest there too, and they'll start to notice details and things will become more and more interesting to them. All right, so some great tools and strategies for you to try next. Would love to hear last call into the chat or comments, something that stood out to you today, helps you to learn, helps you to remember something, helps each other to pull things out of these talks. Also, just remember, we're going to take it one day, one step, one moment at a time. And just know that in order for us to build habits, it just takes trying it a few times and then a few more and then a few more. And next thing you know, it's something in your wheelhouse and in your toolbox. And you can make small shifts consistently over time that build trust and that mutual respect. And if this is something that you really want to build into your daily life, mentorship, maybe some community, tools and strategies, staying in touch with this perspective, consider joining one of our programs at some point. Right now, we're closing doors for our January cohort. We only have till Wednesday to join. If this is your last chance, if this is something you've been thinking about doing, make sure you reach out to me, DM me, take the quiz. I'll pop the link in the chat. And let us know that this is something you really, really want to talk about, and we'll prioritize talking to you by Wednesday. Otherwise, we're looking at maybe studying with us in the future when our next cohorts open up in the summer. So good to connect with each and every one of you. Lots of love to you. And know that this quiz is something you can share with anybody in your world who you think could use some insight into their parenting and or some validation and maybe get some clarity around whether or not they want to get support right now. It can be an intimidating thing sometimes to approach somebody about this, but if you just tell your own story, hey, I attended this training, really enjoyed it, would love to share this Facebook group with you. You can go to the blue invite button. I know Lawrence just did this. I think she invited 3 people. Tiffany invited somebody, and then another 12 people found us through their connections. These resources are available. So please be generous, share them forward, and even share the link to the quiz to folks you think could really benefit from some of these insights. All right. Lots of love to each and every one of you. We'll be back next week for an Ask Me Anything. It's longer form. I'm going to try to blaze through at least 10 questions or more within the hour. So hopefully see you next Monday at noon. All right. Lots of love to each and every one of you. Goodbye for now.